That's fine, that's fine. Before we start off though, people are asking about the nudge button. What is the nudge button?
Yeah, the nudge button. This is a debug build, and our debug builds have a tool called the nudge, which helps us to move locations on the map.
The last time we moved the start date of the game was in Old Gods, where we moved from the original start date, which was in 1066, to 867. And what are we doing now?
Well, we're kind of doing, I wouldn't say the same thing, but the same thing.
We're moving towards the, what's called as the early medieval period, really.
Yeah.
The start of feudalism.
Yeah, I mean this era is it goes by many names. So yeah, I'd say yeah, early medieval era, something like that.
Sounds good. That sounds good. So we're looking at the map right here, and already at the front of on the menu, we've seen a lot of change going on, specifically when it comes to the terrain. What has changed here? Yeah,
you've got snow covering much of Europe.
Yeah, how have you managed that?
Well, we kind of copied it from EU4, basically.
So you basically went to Thomas and said, "Hey, I like what you're doing over here."
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah, obviously you have the 5 starting eras of the game if you have pretty much all the expansions. So we have the standard 1066 start opening, which is the start of the Crusades, the Age of the Mongols in 1241. I think that was added fairly late into the game as well. Not entirely sure about the details there.
No, I think that's been in. I think that's always been in. It's just nobody cares about the other bookmarks, which is why one of the reasons why we made this screen, to just point out that, hey guys, there are actually other starting dates. It's not just
it's like, oh, by the way guys, you can start in the amazing age of Late AD. And then of course we have the Viking Age, which is the 867, which the Old Gods start. Yes. And if you wouldn't have Old Gods at this point, and you've got the
there would be a little icon pointing out that hey, you don't actually have Old Gods.
And it would be grayed out as well, the panel. Okay.
Yes.
And
so
then
be able to click on it.
And then we've got the early medieval time, which is 769, which is the start of today's presentation.
Yes.
So we're actually going to go into that and show what that looks like. So let's go in there. Oh, that's actually quite pretty. So there's a whole bunch of text that comes in. It's a bit of a text blurb, you know, what's going on, with who, what, where, and how. The Romans are dead. Long live the soon-to-be Holy Romans, I guess. Sometimes, maybe, may not, depending on how you play the game.
Yeah.
And of course, the interesting starting characters of this particular type.
Because many of these things are countries that did not exist much later than this.
Except for possibly Asturias and the Byzantines.
Well, yeah, there's things like that, of course. And in France in various incarnations, although at this point, I would not call it France. At this point, it's more
Northumbria.
It's more German than anything else. This is Pictland.
Pictland. What tell us more about Pictland, yo?
Well, it's basically pre-Scotland.
And of course, we've got Francia, the 2 variants. For those people that are not entirely aware about what the Franks were all about, why is there 2 kingdoms called Francia?
Well, basically, Charles and his brother Carloman's dad, he was the king of this kingdom called Francia, and
how big was this kingdom?
It was pretty big. It was basically both of those 2 combined.
If we go towards the character window here, the diplomacy, there's something missing here.
It's the assassinate button.
We've removed the assassinate button. Realm divided.
Paused. Yes. This is the start of something very interesting for us at the Crusader Kings team. Because this is the first event that you get that is basically the story of Charlemagne and of how he sort of became Charlemagne and did the things that he did. However, this being a strategy game, this does not mean that he is railroaded to do exactly the things that he did in history, but it does mean that when things happen the way that they did in history,
certain things will trigger. Yeah,
and you will get sort of context to why things are happening the way that they are, and there's also a lot of setup for the relationship between you and your brother, and the relationship between some other characters. For instance, their mother in Scandinavia. There's only 1 holding in each province, except if there is a temple.
Except for this one, yeah.
So the tribal holding basically represents the entire province. So it gets stronger in bigger provinces. And it basically represents non-feudal, disorganized societies, and they play very differently from the feudal societies. They have different CBs, and they have different ways of interacting with their vassals, and they play in a different way. They also don't use a lot of money. They rather use prestige to build things like buildings.
So if you want to build stuff in your... What would you build, for instance? Like a mustering ground you would build, or something like that?
Yeah, then you would build... You wouldn't build a mustering ground. You would more like... You would convince people to come to you, and it wouldn't be a building, really, because it's a part of your tribe, and it would be sort of a status symbol or something like that. So a lot of buildings, not all of them, but a lot of buildings are built using prestige, which means that the tribals have a much greater need for prestige.
So Mali, so you can roleplay as pirates now. That's cool. Lombards.
You've always been able to roleplay as pirates.
Yeah, but now
Lombards.
you can. Yeah, Lombards. Tell us more about Lombards, the Proto-Italians.
Yes. Well, we have Lombards now.
So we have the Zoroastrians, some Nestorians up here. And then there's these guys. Tell us more.
Yeah, so there's not actually all that much to tell. It is a new religion. It is an entirely new religion, and I'm sure lots of people in the chat know these guys way better than I do and have lots of interesting things to say about them. But they are an entirely new religion that we can play, and I'm sure there will be lots of I conquered the world as the Zunis. Not at all impossible.
The Franks in the province of whatever have adopted enough Latin customs they can no longer be recognized as Germanic. They will now refer to them as French.
Your proper Germans have started to read Latin and stuff.
That is disgusting.
So that was an example of one of the events that we were talking about before, which is the
culture flipping.
Exactly, the culture flipping events where provinces, as well as people, start to realize that maybe this whole Frankish thing was not such a great idea.
No, and all of a sudden, all the people on the Normandy decide to turn into French people.
Yeah,
that's curious. So we have these two buttons. One of them is found the Holy Roman Empire.
Yes, and this is something that you can do under the correct circumstances if you are an awesome person such as Charlemagne. Because the Holy Roman Empire is kind of cool, and it doesn't exist at this point in history, and we want to have it because, honestly, Holy Roman Empire. And also, Charlemagne kind of did found the Holy Roman Empire, so if you want to sort of go in his footsteps as himself, or possibly as Carloman, for that matter, if you want to reverse history a bit, then you should be able to form the Holy Roman Empire, and you can. Yeah.
Anyway, decadence.
Decadence. Yeah, so that's another thing that you all know is dreadful, and we know it's dreadful. We all know that there were a lot of problems with decadence.
Oh, the Umayyads have collapsed, by the way.
Oh, we have opposites there, which is gigantic.
Look at that.
Yes. So basically, decadence had an awful lot of issues. We're not redoing it from scratch again, which we did last time. But we are trying to ensure that it's not as dreadful to have lots of dynasty members.
We're messing around with our vassal limitations.
Yes. Previously you were able to have an infinite number of vassals, and people were abusing the shit out of that.
Yep.
And, well, I say people, I also include you.
I also include myself.
Basically everyone was doing that because it was the only way of managing really big empires. And we want to make sure that it's actually a lot harder to manage really big empires, and generally just to not follow the rules of feudalism. You are supposed to have vassals, and that is supposed to be a part of the deal.
However, we've added a new thing called centralization,
which happens to end up underneath the investiture because it's not a crown law, which is kind of annoying because I would like to have it right next to the crown authority. But anyways, beta, I will fix that. It's not a crown law. I don't think it should be a crown law. It makes sense for it not to be, but it is a law that controls how centralized how much of a government you have and how centralized it is. And it basically at very low, or at minimum,
vassal limit plus 10.
Lots more vassals. and then at the higher ones you have more domain and less vassals.
So basically, this is an extension. If we go, for instance, if we have max centralization, the domain size is +4,
Yeah.
but our vassal limit is -10.
Yes.
Based on, but what is it based on, though?
It's based on the base domain size thing. So
Based on okay.
yeah, it's the regular old domain size thing. But here, as you can see, very interesting. Now I was hoping I could give this a bit more of an introduction before you actually showed it off.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Especially since large portions of the legalism technology doesn't have any effect whatsoever currently. We just haven't gotten there yet.
No.
Legalism only unlocks laws. It does nothing else.
Yeah. No, there he is.
Yeah, it's the sun.
Ragnar Sigurdsson.
Yeah, exactly. And we needed to give him a proper name. Unfortunately, somebody made a mistake. So this would fire this would fire for everyone. So everyone was Lodbrok. There was Lodbrok everywhere.
So it makes all the world.
Yeah, and that was like, well.
So Charles Lodbrok.
Yeah, exactly. There were Lodbroks
Charlemagne
everywhere.
Lodbrok.
Yeah, and this was like an hour before I made the build that you're looking at right now.
Well, let's go take a look at the Chronicle.
Yeah.
So if we have the map here and the interface, obviously, we have the classic stuff here with the map modes. But if you go a little bit further down, we have the character finder here, the go to province button, the ledger, the main menu, and then this little thing over here called the Chronicle. So what does this do? I've seen prototypes of this over a very long period of time in several shapes and several forms.
You should probably consider this a prototype as well, pretty much. It doesn't look great. There's a lot of stuff missing still. But the idea is that this will collect all the interesting things that have happened to all the different characters that you've played, so you can get an interesting book of stuff.
A chronicle, so to speak.
So yeah, I mean, the Secret Bears, it might happen at some point.
May not happen.
It may. Yeah,
it could be that one day you're walking through the forest and you find a bear in the field in an opening. It could just happen.
Yeah, it could just happen.
Hellenism.
It's
People keep on asking about it.
No.
Yes, people.
Yeah, I know. People keep on asking about it, but I mean, what do you really want from Hellenism, really? I mean, seriously, come on. What do you want to do with it?
Well, clearly they want to make a Hellenistic Zune Imperium.
Yeah, that wouldn't work. That's two different religions.
Custom religions. Are we looking at anything like that?
No.
Find your own religion.
I mean, it'd be kind of neat, I guess. It wouldn't be that complicated either.
Secret societies.
Oh, that would be awesome, but it would be so difficult to make the gameplay interesting.
Charlemagne is coming. The next expansion for Crusader Kings 2. We don't know when it's out yet.
No.
We don't know how much it's going to cost.
No.
However, it is coming somewhere between now and the heat death of the universe.
Probably yes.